Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to the 30 Days of Narcissism, and also thanks to our new subscribers. It means a lot to me that you are tuning in, and I hope to keep giving you high quality content that really improves your life and your ability to manage narcissists. So let's go back to the 30 Days of Narcissism. Let's talk about poor boundaries. Poor boundaries is such a classical manifestation of antagonistic patterns like narcissistic personality styles or narcissistic personality disorder. Poor boundaries happen when a person goes over a line that's really not appropriate. And believe it or not, poor boundaries can be found in any relationship. Just because you're in an intimate relationship with someone doesn't mean there can't be poor boundaries. For example, you may have a sensitive work file on your desk and your partner starts flipping through it. That's a poor boundary. Certainly a friend asking you questions about your life that you're not ready to answer. That's a poor boundary. When you first start dating someone and they start asking you questions about very, very personal issues you're not able or not willing to answer, that's a poor boundary. So it can manifest in even relationships that are very, very close. People who grow up in narcissistic family systems will reflect on how violating the poor boundaries were when they were growing up. It could be any number of things. It could be, a whole household where there was not a single private space to go into, that people could burst in at any time and scream and rage at you. It could be family systems where people were rifling through your personal belongings that really were not age appropriate for them to do that, and without cause. It could be asking questions about your life when you were a kid that were deeply inappropriate. And again, without cause. So people who grow up in households where there's very poor boundaries will often report as adults that they'll still continue to struggle with maintaining boundaries in adult relationships. When it comes to other kinds of relationships, like workplace relationships and poor boundaries, same thing. A person in a narcissistic supervisory role may be very inappropriate in what they ask you. Places they ask you to join them to come to. They may ask you to socialize with them in a way that doesn't always feel appropriate. You may be on business travel and have to be staying in the same hotel as them, and they'll insist that you stay up very late having drinks, and it feels uncomfortable to you. They'll insist on uncomfortable things in the workplace, meetings behind closed doors where no one else is present. Those are all examples of poor boundaries. For a narcissistic person who's engaging in poor boundaries, it can sometimes be a power play. When they violate those boundaries, you're often off balance, and the kinds of information or things they're trying to get from you will definitely disempower you, make you feel uncomfortable, and again, places them in a power position. If they are actually in a power position, you may be in a place where you don't feel like you can push back on those poor boundaries and find yourself in a very uncomfortable, unsustainable, untenable kind of a position with them. Going beyond the sense of power, though, poor boundaries also reflect a sense of entitlement, as though they have the right to ask you inappropriate questions or look into private spaces in your life. A place where poor boundaries has gotten very interesting in all kinds of human relationships in the 21st century is obviously in technological spaces. We all carry around a phone that carries around so much that is private about us. Images, messages, emails, apps that contain data. This stuff, we would like to think it's private. Maybe it's not. But for us in that moment, it may be stuff that we don't want the people close to us necessarily to see. Now, I have to say, in the years I've been working with couples and individuals in relationships, particularly as technology continues to evolve, there's different schools of thought on whether your partner can or can't have a password on a particular device. I have to tell you, in sort of my kind of very, very non-scientific data collection, it's about 80-20. 80% of people in committed relationships don't care that their partner looks in their phone. But what's interesting is in those relationships where the person's like, here's my password, I don't care, it's often because there is a mutual sense of respect, and that other person wouldn't dream of just picking up a phone and looking at their text messages. Encroaching on someone's privacy in that way is a poor boundary. And when a relationship is characterized by that, it's really not a healthy space. In those 20% of relationships where people are like, no way am I going to give up my password, it may be because either they're doing some stuff that's shady and they don't want to be found out, or they just don't feel comfortable giving that relationship to a partner they don't necessarily feel safe with. A poor boundary then would be manifested if somebody says, listen, I don't want you to see what's in my phone. And then somebody enters in and somebody pays attention or figures out a way to get that password and enters it and goes ahead and looks anyhow. Another example of sort of a breached boundary and a poor boundary. Poor boundaries take a toll on relationships over time, and narcissists are masterful at them. In fact, they'll often get quite rageful when you try to put a boundary up. And the interesting thing is, one of the key ways of managing a relationship with a narcissist, especially a narcissist you cannot get rid of, like a family member or maybe someone you work with or something like that, is that setting boundaries is one of the key interventions that we recommend. And yet, narcissists don't like them. There's different ways you can do it. Sometimes they're very obvious, don't cross this boundary. But sometimes you can maintain boundaries by simply not engaging and not giving up that information. A lot of times a narcissist will push back and say, oh, now all you want to talk about is the weather. I'm not good enough to talk about other things with. So they'll even sense the pullback in the maintenance of boundaries. You just got to hold your position. Poor boundaries never feel comfortable. They're not okay. They can be very threatening in places like a workplace. They can be very uncomfortable in a close, intimate relationship. And they can definitely affect you developmentally if you came from a narcissistic family system where poor boundaries were just a matter of day-to-day life. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please keep subscribing. If you're a new viewer, please click on the bell below. You can see the rest of the series and you'll keep getting more content sent to you. Get notifications, and that will let you know every time we post a new video. And just as an FYI, I have a new book coming out called Don't You Know Who I Am? How to Stay Sane in an Era of Narcissism, Entitlement, and Incivility. You can go ahead and pre-order it on Amazon. It comes out in September. And if you do pre-order it and you're interested, you can click below and get information on how to get a handwritten note from me. Stick in that book. You have a signed book then. And then I hope that the real gift is the book then that you order, because then you'll get all kinds of information about narcissism. Thank you.